Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of DCT Recruitment's The Icing on the Career Cake. And as ever, I have to start by asking our guest today, Kirsten-Reece, the question, what kind of icing are you?
Definitely the sort of soft fondant type you have on a school sticky bun. I'm an M&S iced and spiced bun snob.
Okay.
Oh, well, there you go. You see, now we know a little bit more about you already. There we go. We're joined by Kirsten-Reece today, who has developed, and we'll find out a bit about this later, alongside Alan, your husband. You've developed a solution for recruitment and for people looking for jobs that kind of goes against the grain and tries to do things better. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But first, we want to know a little bit more about you as a person and why you got to where you are now. So where did your business journey start? What was your first job? Where did that take you?
My very first job. Oh, wow. My very first job in 2000 was in McDonald's, like a lot of people.
Yeah. I worked for McDonald's for 22 long years.
Did you?
Yeah, which McDonald's did you work in?
Solihull, Birmingham.
Okay. Yeah. So they were the first to have the kiosks. They tried that before it got rolled out. So they tried all the kiosks and everything. We were a part of the Experience of the Future team rolling that out across the UK when I worked in head office. So being to the McDonald's.
See, small world, you see. And Diane, just to explain to Kirsten where you ended up in terms of McDonald's.
So I ended up in head office as a training consultant, working, so delivering on all the shift management programs, the system management programs, so on and so forth. And then I went across to what I've just said there, Experience of the Future, and rolled out all the kiosks and the change of the cooking and the service platforms. And then I went back into stores and realised I wanted to do a bit more. So then I actually paid for my CV, believe it or not, and then started looking for jobs. I got a job in a recruitment company in Manchester. I always say I learned what to do and what not to do. And working for McDonald's, you're pushed against the grain of it's not the cool place to be, it's not great, it's not always got good press. So then I went into recruitment, which has the same ethos at times. So I would like to say we do things differently. We try and do things a lot more thorough. We do a lot of inductions. We vet the clients a lot. We get to know the clients, as in it's more like a consultative approach. It's more a partnership. It's more understanding what their culture is, because you can have two candidates, the same skill, but it's finding the right fit of a person for both the client and the candidate that makes it work well. And that's finding, the right person, really getting to know them better, understanding the layers between a person so you can find out what fits them really overall.
Yeah. It's amazing what you take from different jobs along the journey, isn't it? Kirsten, where did you move on to next from McDonald's?
Between 16 and 20-ish, just a series of retail jobs. So I went from McDonald's to Cineworld, worked there for quite a long time. I was sort of deciding whether I was going to go to university at that point, and then I ditched it, went into full-time retail for two major retailers, then got my first office job in 2006.
What was the office job?
That was temping. So it was only a temporary contract and it went permanent. And that was a really cool job, actually. So I worked for a company who did all the legal food labelling and product testing for all the food sold in the major retailers. So we had to check the packaging of certain retailers to make sure it was all legal. But I also worked in the laboratory where I was sort of witnessed a lot of the testing that happened to all the shelf life and all that stuff. So I worked around a lot of the sort of, I was present around the horse meat scandal and all of that. It was a really, really great sector to be in, to be honest.
Like when everything had to have all the calories on it and all that, and you'd have to wish you were part of that world then, because I remember all that when we had to start doing that. And the horse meat scandal, there was a picture of McDonald's in the back as if it was their fault if it rains.
It was awful. I think it was like when memes first came out, because I remember one that somebody was circulating on email, and it had a horse on it with the Ready Mail people.
Yeah.
And it had a picture of a horse on it, and it said, "You won't find us in here."
Oh.
It was awful, but we thought it was the most hilarious thing we'd seen at that time. And it was really funny, but obviously it wasn't. We were. So mandatory allergen labelling had just come in then. And obviously now it's really, a massively legal requirement. But yeah, some of the stuff we saw was just really good, and got to work alongside a lot of big retailers and go visit them and train the staff, and it was a good job.
Yeah.
So you've had these different jobs. So what along the way made you feel like you wanted to get involved with a job solution for people?
I mean, the idea came around in 2024. I was job hunting, and the particular sector that I was looking in, which was sales and business development, the adverts that I was seeing were just awful. Some of them were really short. Some of them were well over 1,200 words. The facts were inconsistent. The salaries were inconsistent. It was just ridiculously confusing. And I've always been quite an innovative person. I've always been quite creative. I come from a family of very hands-on, practical people. And I just sat down one night with a pad and pen and went, there has to be a better way. There has to be something different that I can do. So yeah, it was only sort of, last year, the year before, I really had the idea, but it's massively ramped up in the last sort of 18 months.
Yeah. And you took this idea somewhere because people thought this was a good idea, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I applied for the government startup loan scheme, the sort of ripe old age that I am, and having an idea and thinking, how am I going to fund this? It's a great scheme to go through, but it also sort of tests your abilities to write a business plan, which I'd never done. You get sent lots of forms and Excel spreadsheets and all that sort of stuff. You have to be able to say why your product is different. You have to be able to say what your competition are doing. You have to make projections. So it tests you to do all of that to be able to get the funding. But once I got it, it was just incredible.
Yeah. No. Now, Diane, I'm going to ask you. You've seen lots of different kind of job board kind of platforms, etc. What are some of the pain points for you as a recruiter of some of the existing platforms?
So one of our platforms is, if you do a CV search, it costs £1.10 for every click that you do. So if you're looking for a hard role, that can cost you £2,500 to just look for one role that you might not even ever fill because it's very hard. Does that make sense to do? It's not many people here. Like, compared to another job boards where that's free, it's unlimited, it's part of the package. So the cost of one to the other is big, but then that one that's been dearer, sometimes you can get higher quality candidates apply from that. So it's a tough decision of, do you use it to try and find it? Because I have used it in the past, and for planners who were really hard to find, and we never even filled the job, and it cost me about that amount of money. And that doesn't come out of the client cost, because they don't pay you until you place someone. So yeah, the cost of it can be hard. What I do find is we have people say they've seen our adverts on job boards we're not even a part of. So people piggyback off your adverts, and they're like, oh, well, it's only been posted today. And we're like, no, that job's like 3 months old or whatever. So that can be frustrating from you, because people are ringing the thing. Then it becomes like, oh, all agencies, I'm telling you the truth, but you are telling the truth. There's nothing you can do. I don't even know how that all works and functions, but it definitely does happen, because we don't advertise on Indeed, for instance, and it could come up there or the job boards. So yeah, that can be one of them. But as a whole, overall, the three we use are pretty decently.
Yeah. And are some of those things that Diane talked about there, Kirsten, are those things that you've heard quite a lot?
Yeah, definitely. I think the second thing that she spoke about is site scraping, which is what happens, unfortunately. Now, there is an amount of protection you can put on sites to prevent people from doing that. So You can put sort of anti-screenshot, anti-copy mechanisms and stuff on there, but unfortunately it's something that even certain controls won't stop. But yeah, I can imagine how annoying it is for someone to contact you about a vacancy that you closed 3 months earlier, and it shouldn't be on somebody else's website. It should only be on the places you've paid to place it.
Yeah. It's unnecessary communication and that you have to have. So it's just a waste of everybody's time, and then people don't believe you, so it can impact your integrity. Does that make sense? Regardless of what you say. So that's
Absolutely.
Go back to what I said before is, I'm as honest as the day comes. If the job's for a day, the candidate's told it's for a day. I don't say, oh, it's a week or 2 weeks work just to get them there for that one day and then cancel them, at the end of the day. So, oh, sorry, it's finished. I tell them the truth from the start to the end. So, it just frustrates you from that point of view, you know what I mean?
Yep. Kirsten, what were some of the other pain points that you saw when you were looking for a job that you are now trying to achieve a solution for with your solution?
The biggest one I would say that I sort of work on every day in refining bits and pieces was that I think, without ever having actually logged in as a recruiter on the back end of a jobs board, I think there's a large amount of just free writing and free text you can type in, which means most job adverts are not uniformed. There will be fields for salary, there will be fields for location, there will be fields for job title and the basics. But in terms of the job description, every advert has something different in it. So you'll see a lot of adverts that will say, what's in it for you, what you'll get from us, why should you work here, those kinds of titles. In my opinion, they're not helpful. I think candidates just want to see what the job involves, what the skills are that's required, where they're going to have to go, what the hours are, what the pay is, and a host of other facts and figures. We don't need boxes full of waffle. I think one of the worst jobs I saw was I got 700 words in and the company was still introducing itself and still talking about what they did. And it was nearly 1,000 words in by the time I'd actually got to the paragraph where it started what the duties and responsibilities were. So over 700 words in, and it was still talking about all their awards, their accolades, their history, their customer base, the date they were established. It just went on. And I switched off.
I agree with you to that, because when we get that from our clients, I take off of that out. I just put what we're looking for, what it is. Some of that's because you probably don't want people to know what the company is as well, because other people can go piggybacking off your advert. That's what some recruitment companies will do.
Sure.
They'll look at it, they'll work out, they'll be like, all right, that's that client. We'll go and try and, speak to them as well. That's where, but I don't think that's required. I think I agree with you. I think, where's the facts of the job? Is that the job? That's that. If you're interested, then apply. Then have a conversation. If then, for me, I don't tell them the company until I feel a candidate will be right for the client anyway. Does that make sense? So I'll do my due diligence with the candidate first, ask them about stuff. I'll give you an example. I was looking for a payroll person once, and the guy emails. I was like, can you do all the spec on the job? Yeah. So I ring this and I was like, okay, so I just do a CIS payment. Oh, I haven't done that yet. All right, well, I just do VAT. Oh, I haven't done that yet. I was like, don't email back saying you can do all of that. They're the key.
When you can't.
When you can't, because you're just wasting everyone's time. So, until you've done all that sense check, I wouldn't share the company anyway. Don't get me wrong, the company is important at some stages. Does that make sense? Especially in temporary recruitment, there might be people who don't want to work, with certain companies or whatever. Does that make sense? So it does become important, or, you need to know whether they have work there, because vice versa, the client might not want them back. Does that make sense and stuff? But all of that's seen on the CV anyway, if it's up to date. Do you know what I mean? So.
And half that stuff may well be on their website or whatever anyway. And if it's got the right links to that, or maybe if there's a downloadable PDF that's got more on the business, fine, right? But it's what are you actually having to wade through to get the information that you want first? That's what you're saying, isn't it, Kirsten?
Yeah, absolutely. And the point that, you know, Diane's just made about sharing company name, I think on social media, you see a lot of candidates saying, why can't you just tell us who it is? Why can't you share the company name? I completely understand why you can't. And I think a lot of people do understand why you can't, because they could approach the company themselves. You see social media posts all the time saying that they've been undercut, they've been approached through the back door, and there's all that stuff happening. So you've got to try and mitigate against that. But there's nothing to stop you putting a shorter, more succinct explanation of just what industry they're in, what products they produce, who their customers are. You don't need to say it's X company name. You need to just succinctly describe what they do, what industry it's in. And the more you can do that, the more I think candidates will say, well, I've worked in that before, but I've never done this. It might be a particular niche. It might be a particular sector that they haven't been exposed to or not got experience in. And for me, that should differentiate whether they're going to apply or not. So I think you can say everything all by sharing the company name. And in doing that, you can share enough with the candidate so they can decide whether they should apply or not without having to say, this is the company, unless it's a company that's in a really small town. And by saying they're a shoemaker, you know, there's only one shoemaker in that town and therefore it can only be that company, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So one of the things that your solution's doing is guiding people to create better job boards in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer in a place for everything in its place, which is exactly what our jobs board is hopefully going to do. Everything has its respective fields, so that you don't have to lump everything in together. That's the one thing, so that candidates aren't reading big passages of text and having to piece out the individual details that they need. If the job involves travel, there is a box for that. If the job has more than one location that you need to travel to, there are fields for that. So we've really thought really carefully about putting everything that I hope a candidate might possibly want. There's always going to be something, but we hope that we've put everything in there that needs to be there, but also about restricting what you can write. We haven't put a box in the description that allows you to put 2,000 words in, because that's just not necessary, in my opinion. You can have that conversation with the candidate when you pick the phone up to them, you know.
Yeah. Do you know on the where you put the specifications, if you haven't, a lot of stuff we get with temporary where is accommodation paid, and you know it's not really paid as often as people think. It will on the big projects like Hinkley Point, HS2, stuff like that, but it's not on more local projects. But some people will apply from Scotland to work in Liverpool, for instance, and expect accommodation. So if you haven't put that in, I definitely would add that into your fields.
What we have done is if applicants will only be accepted within a certain radius, and I know this is a bit of a contentious point because there are candidates that say, well, you know, if it's advertised as remote, it shouldn't matter if the job's in Land's End and I'm in John O'Groats. Absolutely, but there's always going to be a time where you're going to need to go into that office, and so if you live 1,000 miles away, then that might be problematic. But yeah, that's a great point about jobs where there's on-site accommodation. And even if it's an on-site job where you're based there for a week while you're doing the project, you might not want to be travelling to and from every day. So yeah, that's a great point.
Well, I'll give you an example. We're on a big site in Teesside, yeah. Now it's massive. It's a £1 billion project. So it's temporary workers, even though that work could be for 3 years because the project's so long. However, because of where it is, you know, once you've got the local people, then you've got to go further afield. So people, you know, travelling may come from Newcastle, for instance. We've got people from Newcastle working there, but we don't pay the digs, we don't pay the thingy because that's not the contract we've got with the clients. But their rates might be paid higher to cover that a little bit. So that's what I mean by that with the accommodation is for the temporary jobs. People who work all over the UK and move from project to project because that's what they like to do. Some people expect the dig money, and it's not always the case. So if you had an option for that, that would be good for that side.
So it's almost like your sort of perks and benefits list, isn't it? Where you can put down that it covers the accommodation, and then the candidate that is looking maybe to have that included can certify that. Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Diane, I want to ask you, is this something different? Because I think this is different. I expect you've had meetings or you've had conversations before with job board companies or whatever, but have they ever come to you and said, what do you need as a recruiter? Or have they told you, this is what we've got this is what ours does. You know, how much of that goes on?
To be honest, I haven't had that many conversations with many people trying to sell job boards. Only one, like a hospitality one.
So that in itself is is different.
Yeah.
Part of the solution here will be the fact that Kirsten and Alan will be able to talk to recruiters like yourself and get that feedback and understand what it is that you need, and then as the development goes forward, continue to review. Yeah.
If you need introductions, Kirsten, to any other recruitment companies, know a few that can help. You know, if you want to do that, if you've got like a bit of a you know, questionnaire or whatever, you know, to get some of your research and to be able to fine tune it, then yeah, you know, I'm more than happy to put you in touch with a few people. Like,
oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Because with the job boards, what I'm trying to say there with the accommodation, it's very different from a permanent job to the temporary job. Does that make sense? And like, we have to put the salary in because the job boards we do and the way our vacancy is set up, we have to put the salary in or we can't post the job. But I think that's most people's, like, and that infuriates me, you know, even when you say to the client, well, what do you want to pay? What's this? And like, oh, well, what's the going rate? It's like, it doesn't really matter the going rate. It's what are you wanting to pay? Because there's no point in me coming back to you and going, oh, yeah, that's 50k and you've got 35 in your head, whatever. Does that make sense? Like, the salary, let's be honest, the salary's one of the most key points in an advert, because if it might be your ideal job, but if it's not the money you're expecting for that role, then and you're 20 grand far apart, there's no point applying. Does that make sense? Because
yeah, completely.
It's not going to change much, really. You can be lucky. I have other clients who did pay a lot higher to what thingy because the candidate was the right person. So you will get that sometimes, and that will be great, but that's not very often. Does that make sense? So I think if you do it where you can't post it without the salary in there, like ours is, that's good.
That was like the major thing that everybody talks about on, you know, on LinkedIn, on other social media platforms is, and I think where people that are out of work at the moment is that if you see a job and you read it, aside from the fact that it says competitive salary or negotiable or in line with market averages or anything else worded when it should be a numerical only field, let's be honest, is that if you see a job that you think, oh, I can do all of that, you apply anyway, because it's going to go 50-50. It's either do I apply and find out that actually is in the ballpark I need, or do I apply anyway and find out in 10 minutes time that I've just wasted somebody's time applying because it's well below what I can afford to live on.
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, and again, it's going back to efficiency, isn't it? So, you know, whether a recruitment company is doing it or a company is doing it for themselves, if you put the salary brands on, then you're not going to get inundated with too many applicants. You know, you can put some jobs up and you can get 1,000 applicants for it, you know. Depends on what it is. So you've got to get through all of that. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, if you're narrowing it down, then you're going to get to it. One thing I would say is, and I probably sell this more of my own experience, is men will apply for a job if they've got 2 of the 10 attributes, then they'll be like, yeah, I can do it. Women are a bit more, they need to have all 10 and they won't apply or whatever. And that's not trying to put people in a category, but that's just something that you see in their statistics out there. Like, what I think is, if you put too much about the essential key responsibilities people need to do, you could deteriorate or detract finding that diamond in the rough. So if I look at my own journey, I didn't even know recruitment existed. I now run a business in it, right? And I'm quite open to say that to people. And people might think I'm mad to say that, but I had no reason to know it. We did everything in-house. We did it all. I was in the world of burgers, chips and pop. I didn't know anything outside. I'd never known anyone in the field of recruitment, so I just didn't know it existed. You only know what you know in life until you're challenged on something or until you're educated. So if I look at that, but I quite easily transitioned from my role to recruitment. It wasn't hard to learn. It wasn't hard to understand. It wasn't difficult because both businesses are very people orientated businesses. Does that make sense? So it's more about understanding people, understanding culture, understanding, listening to roles, responsibilities, processes, procedures. All of that is completely transferable. So I always say to the client, just give this person an interview, because yes, they might not have all of them tick boxes on that. However, the attributes that you're saying you're looking for in someone that you can't find, or you keep saying they're not out there anymore, this person's got that. So that's more weight than gold. You can teach skill, but you can't teach attitudes, and you can't teach the values that you want as a business. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
from that side of things, that's what I would say is people need to be not too black and white with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it can be a very demoralizing place to be, sat in front of a job board trying to find the next job as well. I mean, you know, a lot of times when people are doing that, they're out of work. They're you know, financially, this is a difficult time for them, etc. Or, you know, or they're not happy where they are at the moment, and, you know, they're looking for a way out. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in terms of the lifestyle thing in a minute. But one of the things that I know that you're focused on, Diane, is the DCT, which is delivering careers together, and partnerships that enable people to move on from where they are, even if they haven't got all of that skill set. So partnering with people that may be able to train people up, upskill people, whatever. And I do wonder whether like some of that needs to be built in as you go along, Kirsten, which is that, you know, you might not have all of this today, but there are avenues, you know, there are ways of getting to that. And actually, is it worth the conversation in the first place if you're prepared to do the extra to get to that? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Diane, you made an absolutely great point about and for somebody else that's come from McDonald's, you know, they're a great employer when I was there, and if nothing else, it doesn't half teach you what a day on your feet is.
Yeah.
Because I'd come straight out of school to doing 8, 10, 12, 14-hour shifts by the time I was 18 in the middle of the night. Where I was based in Solihull, there was a huge big development going on, so we had construction workers coming in 5:30 for their breakfasts, and then again late at night for their dinners, because they'd been there 24/7, and my feet were burning when I got home. So it's great in terms of starting you off in your sort of career. Like you, when I came out of that, I was like, where do I go? And where I lived at the time, there was a recruitment agency around the corner, and she got me into my first office job. Looking back on that, I don't know how she did it. I don't know how she took somebody that had only ever worked in a burger restaurant to answering phones in quite a nice office, talking to clients and dealing with colleagues every day who were suited and booted, because that was not where I come from. Kind of drawing a parallel to jobs boards, I think there is something slightly missing. I'm absolutely on board with you about saying, you know, you've got to consider the diamonds in the rough. But then a contrast to that, the gentleman you spoke about earlier on who said, yeah, I can do the full spec of payroll responsibilities, but as soon as you said, do you know how to process VAT? Do you know how to process, you know, a CST or whatever the acronym was? He suddenly went, no. Well, what's the point? I think what jobs boards are actually missing is there'll be a huge, great big list of duties, but it won't tell you which ones of those the employer is holding at the top of their requirements. As in, if we get 100 people apply and 10 of them can do this and 20 of them can't do this, it's only these top 10 that we're actually going to be looking at, because there are certain mandatory fields that mean if you don't possess even this one qualification, you aren't going to get a look in.
Yeah.
And I don't think they do enough to define that. I mean, there's a lot of talk on social media about about how important it is to have a degree and, you know, whether it really matters these days. But there's still a lot of people that are saying, look, if you don't really need a degree, don't put it on there as a mandatory requirement. Whereas some people will put it on there and it isn't. And then you're going to miss out on people that haven't got a degree, who look at it and go, it says I need a degree in this, I haven't got it, therefore I won't apply. And that's the diamond in the rough they've probably then missed out on, because they've stipulated a requirement that actually they really don't need.
Yeah. No, that's what I mean. Like stuff like that where they want the unicorn and it's like, you want everything. Now, yeah, that's great, but You know, what are the key skills that you need? Because, yeah, you do need certain key skills to do certain jobs. But some jobs, like, for instance, sales roles, as long as you can sell, it doesn't matter what industry you were in. The sales approach, how you do it, is pretty much the same. You just then have to learn the product or the service or whatever it is you're selling. But if you can sell, you can move to any sales role. Does that make sense? But some people will be like, no, they must have experience in that field. And it's like, well, why? Maybe. And some of that, I think it's because they think, oh, well, you'll have connections and they can get me quick sales. Yeah, well, my argument to that is I didn't see that I could sell because I wasn't in a sales role, you know, previously. But I obviously can because I wouldn't have grown the business how I have. But I don't look at it like I'm selling. To me, it's just about building relationships. It's just about getting to know people, listening to the problems and finding them a solution, whether that be we help in recruitment or I help them by putting them into touch with their apprentice provider, because that is the best solution for them.
I think one of the big problems is that it's a lot of pressure sometimes within organisations for one person to put these jobs onto a board and advertise for the jobs, and quite often that person's had no education in terms of what they should be putting out there. They're getting kind of mixed messages probably from other members of management. I can attest to this myself. With my wife has to put jobs on the job board, and she has to do it a lot because in the dental industry you get quite high turnover a lot of the time, and you're always looking for new people, and it's really, really difficult. And then the company changes their mind all of the time. So, you know, 1 minute it's this, and then the next minute it's that. And then you find that if you don't put it on there right, you get a lot of rubbish back. But like Cher say, nobody's ever taught me to do this. Nobody's ever taught me like what I should be putting in there to get the best responses back. So I feel like there's, alongside having the great system, Kirsten, I feel there's probably an education bit, but an education bit that might be materials like this, conversations that people could tap into so that they have a better understanding of what needs to happen there, you know. And I just feel like a lot of job boards, they're a bit like, well, for me it's just a bit like having an empty screen in a social media scheduler, right? A lot of people are going to look like that with absolute dread. I haven't a clue what I'm writing here, right? And unless someone educates you and takes you through a process.
Yeah, there's laws around what you can say in an advert and stuff as well, so people have to understand that. You know, for instance, we have to say we're looking for a temporary whatever, or we're looking for permanent. If you don't say that, then you know you can get done, and you can't specify certain things. You certainly couldn't specify whether you wanted male or female or anything like that. So people have to understand the laws around advertisements as well.
Yeah,
of what they can and can't say. You know, and I wasn't really fully taught that in my first company.
There you go.
Need me there, Kristen, if you could put a session together on how to write the perfect advert, I think that would enhance what you've got to offer to businesses. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love what you've just said there, because I actually spent a week in recruitment. So in 2017, I got made redundant from a company that I loved. It was all really unfortunate. And I went through, it was for a very big, very well-known recruiter. I lasted a week. So everybody said to me since I've started this jobs board, they're like, oh, you're from recruitment. I'm like, nope. I've spent a week in it. I learned a lot, but then a week is not anything, you know. A week is not long enough to be able to have seen all of the things that you read about on social media every day from recruiters and from candidates. And obviously I wasn't even, this jobs board wasn't even a seed in my brain back then. This came about in kind of 2023. But yeah, I don't want to teach anyone to suck eggs, because I'm not in a position to do that. I will never tell a recruiter how to write a job advert. I will never tell people how to do their jobs. The way we've designed the jobs board is that we've tried to make everything as drop down, select from checkbox as we can, so that the sort of opportunity for writing and free text stuff is reduced only to the things that it needs to be. So, for example, the job spec that your client is giving you will have a list of duties and responsibilities and key skills and knowledge and expertise that you need to put in there. But beyond that, everything is, things that should make it very, very quick and efficient to complete, but also minimises error. For example, like you mentioned with the accommodation, things like perks and benefits. We haven't got things in our list like, Xbox tournaments on a Friday or, free tea and coffee, because everybody's sick to death of hearing about stuff like that. And actually, it makes no difference to any candidate whether they're going to apply for that job. It's all going to be about whether it's a job they want, feel they can do, somewhere they can get to, and pays what they need to live on. Those are your bare bones requirements. But yeah, what we have done, there's a lot of jobs boards that have series of articles that tell you how to write a CV, how to write a cover letter, how to write a prospecting letter or whatever it might be. We don't want to tell people how to write adverts, but what we have done is put together some guidance that tells you how to reduce what you've got or what you might have been given by your client into something that then fits onto our jobs board. We have over 50 different fields where I think as a starting point when we go live has most bits of information that a recruiter or a candidate might need to see. So we've tried to attack it from that point of view rather than saying, don't put this in there, do put this in there. But we've tried to explain why those things are important to candidates, and that actually in not doing that, you are more likely to attract people who are not suitably qualified to do that job. Because the one thing that is all over social media is we've got 600 applicants and only 10 of them are worth a phone call. After 10 phone calls, that's been reduced to another, 4 of them out of the running. The 6 candidates I can now send to a recruiter, but to a company, but I've had to go through 600 CVs to get down to those decent 6.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do is, from a recruiter and a candidate point of view, is reduce it so that candidates can actually look at themselves, look at their experience, their CVs, and go, really, have I got what I need, or should I just move on?
We advertised for a cleaner and they needed a DBS check. So we got in and they with cleaners, 2 of them had a DBS check. So
Wow.
it's but at the same time, for instance, we use CV Library and stuff, but if they click certain things on the job boards, it applies for the job for them as well. So sometimes it's not the candidate's fault. Does that make sense? It's what is happening within the job board. So they might just send people CVs to some jobs they feel like they're linked to, because we've rang people and they're like, I haven't even applied for that job.
So you click, I can use a cloth, and then it just applies for loads of yeah. Oh my word.
I might be a bit naive here. I didn't even know that happened. I didn't even know that happened.
I know from ringing candidates, because we make sure we try and ring pretty much everybody that's applied, apart from those who applied from another country and are not eligible. And even that should be a blocker, because you'll get excited and be like, oh yeah, I've got 50 applicants today and 30 of them might be from all around the world and they can't come, and they think they can just get a sponsorship. So it's clicking, is a sponsorship available? That would be a really good thing to put on your job board. And if that's not, then people from abroad can't apply, because that's a real big time waster, because people are like, oh boy, this and that. And the problem you have with sponsorship is it's a big risk for the client. There's no risk for the candidate. So the client has to agree to offer 2 years worth of employment to the candidate. That candidate could come over, get the job, and in 2 weeks he could leave and they owe that company nothing. And the company's had to pay for the sponsorship fee, do everything, blah, blah, blah. So it's not really something that many...
Yeah, that's massive. That is massive in the dental industry. Massive.
Yeah. Well, it's not what people... Now, I know certain industries probably need that, like maybe the dental industry, for instance. But for your average, finding a joiner or electrician or whatever, it's not required. I'll give you an example. I commented on a post on LinkedIn the other day. Someone looking for someone for Starbucks, like a Starbucks role. It's in the UK, and I was like, look, we can help you with that if you want. I've now had 3 CVs. This was only yesterday, and maybe commented from India with people with their hospitality CV saying, "Hi, I'm interested in the job." I haven't even got a job advertised. I just commented on a post. Does that make sense? And they work for Starbucks over in India, and it's like, I can't help you. You're not in the UK. Does that make? And I'll reply because I don't want to be rude. But it's just another email, isn't it, that you have to do? And if you want to go the sustainability side of life and all your carbon and things like that. So when you're saying people aren't interested in the benefits, that I would say that's slightly different in the younger generation, if I'm honest. Yeah, they are interested in, not having dressed on Friday and that's the well-being and all that type of rubbish. But they are interested in, what's the sustainability policy? You know, what is the growth in the company? What's the training plan? What that type of stuff, the strategic things need to be in there, not the fluff stuff that people think, oh, this makes us look like we've got a good culture and we do well-being, because like you said before, we give free tea and coffee. Well, that should be a search, shouldn't it? If you're in an office or wherever, there should be, drinks available or whatever. Do you get what I mean? So yeah,
absolutely. And that's, again, fields that we've added in. We've added in the probation, the training, the progression, the culture, all of those. We hear so much these days about toxic culture and people leaving because they're being micromanaged, or, various other things. They're being stuck on leaderboards against other colleagues. They're being made to feel like they're competing all the time. It's not about working for a company and, being judged on your own achievements. They constantly feel like they're running a race they'll never win. So we've included fields like that and explained the kind of thing people are deterred by and the kind of thing people are going to want to see, and that's part of our guidance on the back end about how to write a job advert that's going to invite people to apply and give them the right level of information, but not deter them from applying by writing, like you've said, miles of fluff that is just inconsequential.
Yeah.
Why to you is incorporating some lifestyle stuff really important in all of this?
Yeah, so as we sort of move forward, there are hundreds, thousands of jobs boards out there globally, from the ones which are general, the big brands that we're all aware of, to smaller niche ones that are specifically for catering, hospitality, or for, medicine or whatever it might be. But being out of work it's a full-time job in itself. The cost of living is crushing everybody at the moment, and whether you've just got your own mouth to feed or whether you've got partner, family, children, it's a really, really stressful time. So we kind of thought, when I had the idea that just being another jobs board and listing jobs wasn't really enough, I wanted our jobs board to be we have roadmap plans for after we've gone live and the next sort of 6 months, that we want to involve people from standpoint where it's we understand what you're feeling. I've been out of work for significantly long periods, like other people. This is now my full-time job, but it's not a lifestyle people choose. Whether you've left your job voluntarily, there's a reason you've done that. Whether you've been made redundant, massively unfortunate. There are people that are on social media saying they started a job 2 weeks ago and they've already been made redundant because somebody's tried to hire them at the last minute in a last-ditch attempt to save a part of the company or save a role, and it just hasn't worked out. So people are being plunged into all these different circumstances which affect you financially and mentally. So we want to add different things which are going to support you to manage your money, to manage your exercise, your daily habits, and that you're not just literally getting up every morning, logging on and doom scrolling for hours, because that's what a lot of candidates are doing. Then they'll log on to another jobs board and do exactly the same. And the reality is, because so many companies post the same jobs on 10 jobs boards and more, 50, 60 jobs boards, because of job aggregators and multi-posters, you're actually not doing yourself or your search any good. So we want to talk more about the lifestyle of being out of work, talk about how you can manage that, how you can try and manage your mental health. When we were kids, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s under Thatcher Major. Again, when the recruitment industry was in a huge mess, the economy was in a mess. My parents were in and out of part-time jobs, benefits, income support, all of that stuff. We grew up where my mom would tip her purse out, we'd have coins, right? We had literally coins, and that had to be dinner, bus fare to school. A tin of cat food was stretching it. It was, we like a lot of people, we were on the breadline. And so we're going to incorporate things like, you know, meal sharing ideas, you know, how to budget, you know, that you don't have to, you know, sacrifice good health and good mental health while you're job searching. So we want to be incorporating a lot of these good things that some jobs boards, it's just all about the jobs. And we want to say we're more than that, because being out of work is a lifestyle. It is not just about scrolling through job adverts day in, day out.
You can have like a chat box thing where people could speak to each other on it and see how they find the things. Would you think that would help? Because especially with mental health and sharing and just being able to pick people up or something, or even maybe somebody highlighting a job to someone that they might not think they could do because they've got to know them. I know it becomes a bit more of a social platform, but you know, going on.
Yeah, potentially. I think that there is a propensity there for it to cross over into being a social media site, and I do want a line drawn there that it is a job. It is first and foremost a job searching platform. It is not a social media site. However, in the new year, I mean, you know, the pandemic affected everybody massively. We are still feeling the effects of that with the shift in how people feel about the commute to work. I've been home based since 2020, like a lot of people. I've never gone back to an office. I had a retail job for 6 months this year, and I loved doing that just part time. It got me out of the house. But in terms of people sort of just being at home, I think when you're out of work, you feel like, well, where can I go? I haven't got much money. What can I do? The one thing that we're going to be launching next year is we're going to be launching recruitment events. So it's just going to be small, unassuming venues. It's going to be a chance for recruiters and for candidates to get out and meet each other with roles, and just give candidates something to go to, somewhere to go, people to meet with their CV, you know, incorporate some workshops about CVs, interview prep, you know, dress, all of those different things, to get people back out in front of each other. Because I remember 20 years ago when I used to walk to the recruitment agencies in my local town, clutching a copy of my CV, walk in and go, I'm looking for a job. And, you know, some woman in a suit would come out with a fresh pot of coffee and have a sit down and a chat and start looking for jobs for you. And it obviously, you know, recruiters are there to fill jobs for clients, not for candidates. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I don't know on that, because you can spec CVs to the clients to try and get the candidate to work. So it can work both ways.
Absolutely it does. But I think I don't know how many people actually just walk into a high street based agency now. I think, you know, so much is online. When was the last person you heard of that just walked into a recruiter that's got office premises in there? You know, we've got one or two down the road from where I live. There are a few agencies, but I don't know how many people actually just walk through the door one day and say, you know, can I talk to you about this vacancy?
I'm pretty certain that Diane, you love meeting new people. Maybe we can get Kirsten and the team up to Liverpool at some point.
Oh, definitely. I've got big plans for this. Honestly, you know, since I had the idea for the jobs board, it's kind of spiraled, and I've got so many plans for where I want to take it as a brand. But for me, you know, people need to get back out of the house. That is not a dig at candidates. It's really difficult, and the focus is on job searching. So you think I'm just going to sit in front of my laptop, but you know, even when I worked full time at home, you know, when I was employed last year, I suddenly realised I'd not been out of the house for 2 days. Hadn't even gone down the road for a walk, or to, you know, get a paper, or to just walk around the block. So I think, you know, putting something in the diary to say, do you know what, you know, go and meet some people, just turn up. So yeah, we've got big plans to help add some things like that to the lifestyle, to make people feel like they're being productive, and to make people feel like I've been somewhere today. Maybe they've walked out and somebody said, yeah, I'll call you in a couple of days, or they've made an interview appointment, or whatever it is. But it's just giving people back that spring in the step and go, I've done something today, I've been somewhere, I've had a really good conversation, and I haven't just sat at home behind closed doors scrolling my way through jobs boards that I don't know whether I'm going to hear off.
Also on that note, okay, there isn't as many people who want to offer hybrid working anymore. People want people back in the office, you know.
They do, absolutely.
It's the way it was more so before COVID. Don't get me wrong. People will be like, yeah, we'd be flexible if it needs to be a day a week, or now and then, or for anything. But, you know, you can't underestimate working with people in a team. That shoulder to shoulder learning and training.
Diane, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation today. Kirsten, I hope you have too. Any kind of takeaways from this, Diane?
So we'll have like an offline to get to know and understand and see the job board more. to look at it, you know, and help. But yeah, I agree with you. You know, some offers can be war and peace, and they really don't need to be. The more factual you are, then that's what people need to know. You know, you can't argue with the facts, can you? And that's just what people need to know. All the other stuff is, you know, that you're getting to know the candidate and understand whether it's the right fit for the job. And I think from my experience with staff at times, you can be keyboard warriors too much, and it can be too much over email, and then you're not. That's when the mistakes happen, in my opinion. I really push about myself and that principle, whether it be on the phone, face to face, Zoom, whatever, that you need to get to know the person to know what the job is right for them. But some people don't understand what skills they've got. So I had a conversation with a lady who had really high skills. She come in, but she had 2 dogs, so she couldn't work too much. It was this, it was that. Anyway, in the end, I ended up getting in a role that worked well for her. But without her coming in and spending a little hour with her to actually go through the detail, you probably wouldn't. And people would have just been like, oh, that's too much like hard work. You don't deal with that. Does that make sense? So, you know, I think it's both sides of the coin. I think a lot of jobs are better done as a team in an environment and in the work. And if you read about a lot of things in life, how you be the better version of yourself and learn is by surrounding yourself by people who are better than you, who that's how you learn their good attributes. That's how you can't do that from working at home. You know, you only learn that being in a team environment or watching other people, what maybe goes well and what goes not so well, and you think, oh right, okay, well, I know how to do that better. Or just listening to difficult conversations, how your manager maybe handles that, they'll teach you how to handle the next challenging conversations. You know, you don't learn that being at home, do you? So,
Diane, thank you so much for coming in today. Thanks for today's conversation, and thank you at home listening to this or wherever you are. Please, if anything that you've heard today you want to ask any questions on, please do. When you see this going out on whatever platform, do ask a question. We will endeavour to get back to you. Do make sure that you connect to Diane and Kirsten on LinkedIn if you're watching it on there. And we will be back soon with more conversations around the world of recruitment. But until then, Diane, Kirsten and myself, bye for now.